So over the years, Tycoon has had so many different changes to its metas where different types of vehicles or different types of combats dominated. However, out of all, there is one meta which has been nerfed the most, and there is one meta which is absolutely useless now. I call it the ground meta. I believe the weapons in this game are just way weaker than what they used to be, and the combat system in this game when it came to ground PvP has gotten worse and worse over the years. And today I will be going over the reasons to why that's the case and why the ground community is now dead. And there is a really good reason for that. One of them being is that weapons are just kinda useless against vehicles now. I believe previously there were so many better ways in which you could actually fight vehicles as a person on the ground. However, now that is just sadly not the case. And the simple reason why I say this is because the vehicles over the years have gotten stronger and stronger. They started adding more power creep, more ways to deal with people on ground, to the point where now it is very easy for a vehicle to kill a person on the ground without even putting in any effort by just simply using high explosives or just having an unbearably high amount of health to the point that no matter what you do, you will not be able to counter the vehicle. Like sure, they added the C4 and the grenade launcher, except the issue is both of these weapons right here are unfortunately not good at range, and vehicles now can abuse range against you most of all. Back then you were kinda able to sit on top of rocks and kinda try to kill the opponent that way. However, now basically almost every vehicle in the game has an easy way to be able to counter you even when you're doing that. Another thing which I quickly want to mention is that a lot of vehicles in this game have mostly been buffed in terms of health. However, in return they didn't decide to buff the weapons along with this, which meant that the weapons fallen behind. An example of this is something like the Javelin. It used to actually be a pretty good vehicle counter because it did some decent damage to it. It was able to 4 to 5 shot a tank on average. However, now that's more like an 8 to 9 shot. That's kind of the issue right here. The Javelin is no longer as useful as what it used to be when it came to actually countering vehicles. And the reason for that is because once again, they did not buff the Javelin along with a health buff to all the vehicles in the game. The Stinger is not as much of a good counter to really any air vehicle anymore because I believe it does around 100 damage or so, and that's literally it. Plus the reload speed of it is around 15 seconds. I believe the way in which they nerfed the Stinger was way too harsh. Yes, they nerfed some bugs, that was kind of the reason why the Stinger was changed in this way, and unfortunately due to this, the Stinger is kind of useless now actually, and I don't really see many people even bringing it in its loadout. I mainly see the RPGs and close range weapons, which are just not the way to handle vehicles as much unless you specifically get in their face and you somehow survive. The next thing which I want to go over is going to be the double sniper nerf. The first sniper nerf which actually took place, I believe, was around the KA51 Panther update, and basically what they've done is they made it almost impossible to hit shots from hip fire. So for example, right here as I'm trying to hit the headshot, I can't do that just because of hip fire. Now the next change which they also made to snipers is that they made their pullout time even longer than what it used to be. Just compared to a shotgun or an assault rifle, the pullout time is double the time. So now you essentially have to either aim in the scope or you have to essentially bug abuse, which is the most annoying part. And I don't even do this much because I just find it so cheesy to play. I can't even do it half the time. Now the next issue which I also found is that the sniper scope happens to be incredibly buggy a lot of the time. So for example, whenever you're just fighting your friends or really fighting anybody, you come across the sniper scope problem, which essentially makes the scope have insanely bad sensitivity. So as an example of this is the normal sensitivity that you would get. However, when you get the bug, it's like this. So you basically cannot even aim at the person because you cannot control your aim at all. And even if you decrease your sensitivity on your mouse or really in Roblox to like an unbelievably low level, that will not matter. This has been a bug in the game for an extremely long amount of time now, and there really is nothing that developers have really done to fix it, and I believe the reason to why this is the case is because it might even be impossible to fix it, I believe, because the gun system is so old, and this is probably like a bug which the developers probably wouldn't even know how to fix, because most of the time if there is like a game-breaking bug like this, they decide to fix them. However, this one out of all, it doesn't seem to be fixed for over a year now. Now the next thing which I want to cover is going to be the explosive meta abuse, and this one is a pretty self-explanatory one. The addition of the C4 grenade launcher, it is just an extremely cheesy way to kill people, which unfortunately works really effectively. I understand the C4 was added in this game to be able to counter vehicles. That was a good idea. The grenade launcher in some way was also good at countering vehicles, except the issue is that these two items destroy the ground meta more than actually help players counter vehicles in this meta. I'm not saying that you should be nerfing the C4 and the grenade launcher against players. However, what I am saying is that these two items right here actually ruined one meta more than helped the other. And now moving into the last point, and out of all of these, I believe this is one of the bigger faults, the community itself. I think this game has some of the worst communities for ground PvP that I've ever seen in any video game. And I'm not even gonna go in depth to what a lot of people in this community have done to actually try to come out on top against other factions as well. Factions is another problem of its own. I believe that is also a huge reason to why the weapon combat is not as prominent as what it used to be. The factions themselves kinda really ruined the fun for a lot of people. However, the good thing about this is that we no longer have the chat, so whenever somebody's trying to be annoying or just write really toxic messages to you that discourage you from playing the game, you can't really see it as much anymore because the fact that the chat was kinda removed on Roblox for the most part. And now I'm gonna be moving into ways in which they can actually fix this problem which is currently going on and actually make the ground meta a lot more prominent than what it used to be. We as a community need a proper ground PvP update. We don't just need additions like the Spec Ops room, which by the way I really support. I think it is a great change and it adds a lot to the ground PvP meta without actually ruining it in any way. All of these armors, the new underwater rifle, all of these here are really interesting in their own way and they actually do their job really well too. However, what we need most of all is a proper ground PvP update which fully revamps the weapon system, movement itself, and just a lot more things like this. I believe there could be so many things that you could do with movement in this game. I think the ability to lay down, be able to dodge, and all this stuff would be so cool because it would add so much more to the ground meta itself and it would also add a lot more strategy to it. I believe some weapons also need rebalances because right now there is a clear and definitive meta and there isn't really a reason to use specific things like pistols, for example, or be able to use SMGs, etc, etc. I believe an easy way to fix different types of weapons would have been to, for one, buff SMGs and buff pistols. So the way in which I would buff the SMGs is perhaps just give them slightly better damage so they're just a lot more worth to use since you can only really use them in close range. And when it came to pistols, I believe a nice way to do it is that you would have had better movement speed in the pistols, you'd have a medium movement speed in the assault rifles, and you'd have a slow movement speed while you're using the sniper, since it essentially allows you to win the fight in 1 second. Now the next thing which could be done to actually fix the problem that we have right now would have been to kind of improve the way in which vehicles and people on the ground as infantry interact with one another. That could be done through buffs, that could be done through different statistical changes, maybe even just adding more features for infantry itself to be able to counter vehicles. There's just so much to do, and in real life there's always variety, so let's give it more variety in the game as well. And of course the last thing which I'd love to see is going to be able to fix the bugs. I really hate the current bug right now. There is really nothing you can do about it, and once it logs in you essentially have to leave and rejoin to fix it, and half the time it doesn't even fix itself anyway. But anyway, for the time being, that's all I have for you guys in today's video. Do let me know in the comment section down below what you think about the fall of the ground meta. Would you like to see these types of changes? Do you think ground PvP needs a huge update? But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your day.